Good afternoon and welcome everyone to the Chamber of Commerce's webinar today with our very special guest, Secretary of State Michael Adams. So as part of our Go Vote campaigns, we always talk about how important it is to participate in every one of our elections that we have. It's not only a right and a privilege, it's a sacred duty, and we believe that Owensboro needs to practice this duty together, and that we all need to understand how important it is, not just because it is our duty and obligation, but also because our community needs to demonstrate that we are active in elections and that we understand that together our voices are stronger in Frankfurt and in Washington. So it's a twofold purpose, one very sacred and one pragmatic. Today, we would like to welcome Secretary of State Michael Adams, and I do want to introduce him briefly because he has such an amazing resume that we're as Kentuckians so proud of, and I will put my glasses on to make sure I don't miss anything, so pardon the glare. Michael attended public schools and was the first in his family to get a bachelor's degree, and he is a West Kentucky boy. He's from Paducah originally. He, after graduating with his bachelor's degree from the University of Louisville, where he was a McConnell Scholar, he attended Harvard Law on low-income aid. Returning to Kentucky, Michael clerked for the U.S. Chief District Judge John Hayburn for Senator McConnell's 2002 reelection campaign, and as Deputy General Counselor to Governor Ernie Fletcher before moving to Washington, D.C. to serve as the U.S. Deputy Attorney General in the second Bush administration. In 2007, Michael began full-time private practice in election law, first as general counsel to the Republican Governors Association, and later he opened a national practice in the field. He has represented several national political committees, members of Congress, and a statewide campaign efforts in all 50 states. Because of this unique election experience, Governor Bevin appointed Michael to the Kentucky State Board of Elections prior to being elected as the Secretary of State last year. Secretary Adams is happily married to Christina and is the proud father of Lucia. So we'd like to welcome you, Secretary Adams. When you were campaigning, it was always great to get to talk to you and just listen to you about all the experiences that you've had as a Kentuckian and a mom of Kentuckians who are striving to be a part of the political process. We're so proud of what you've accomplished, and we'd like to hear from you today about what we're going to be doing here in this primary season.
Well, thank you, Candace, and thank you all of you for attending today. I told Candace before we went live that the biggest challenge I have right now in this position as the chief election official is getting information out to the voters to make sure that everyone knows how to vote and is not disenfranchised. So as you know, our election was supposed to be on May 19th. The governor and I agreed jointly to exercise our joint emergency powers under Kentucky law to delay the primary election by 5 weeks, which is the maximum we can do so. From May 19th to June 23rd, our hope was that the virus would simply go away. Obviously, that has not happened, but we thought that if it didn't go away, an additional 5 weeks would give us time to plan for a different approach to this election to ensure both that people are not disenfranchised, but also that every voter is kept safe from harm, as well as our poll workers. So let me jump to, I think, the most important thing that I can tell you, and that I hope that you'll tell others as well, which is, how do you vote in this election? We didn't take anyone's rights away. Governor Beshear would not do that, and I would not do that. We want everyone to have the right to vote and to exercise it if they can, but to do so safely. So we've actually not taken rights away. We've expanded options. We've made voting even easier. There are 4 ways to vote in this election. Number 1, you can vote in person on election day. Your right to do so is in our state constitution. Our state constitution guarantees voting at, quote, the polls. So the polls will be open on election day during the hours that are actually set forth also in our state constitution, from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. in every single county. It's been necessary to reduce significantly the number of locations available for in-person voting. I'll talk more about that in just a moment. But we will have in-person voting on election day from 6 to 6, as we always have. Number 2, we have the option to vote in person early, which is to say you can vote in person before election day. No later than next Monday, June 8th, every county in the state will be opening in-person voting to be done at hours to be set by the clerks, at locations to be set by the clerks. Usually it's their offices, but not always. Some counties have actually begun this already. The reason we're expanding early voting is to try to reduce crowds at the polling sites on election day. Both our Democratic governor and our Republican president agree we need to avoid crowds of more than 10 people where possible. We need social distancing. We need people 6 feet apart. For us to do that, it's just not feasible to have a traditional election. That's why we're offering in-person voting on election day, but also offering in-person voting before election day. So the first way you can vote is in-person election day, June 23rd. Second way is in-person before June 23rd. The third way you can vote is also in person. You can vote in person absentee. That sounds like a contradiction, but here's what that means. If you go to govoteky.com, that's our website, govoteky.com, you can request an absentee ballot. You have to request it. The reason for that is we just can't mail ballots out to the phone book. We've got to verify your identity. So we do ask you to provide some personally identifiable information that we have in our voter file to confirm that it's you. But you apply for a ballot, we mail it to you, and then you can bring that ballot back in person to your county clerk. We've provided secure drop boxes free of charge to all of our county clerks for them to place in their offices. These will be housed indoors. They'll be monitored continuously and directly, so we don't have any hanky-panky with our ballot boxes. But you can have this delivered to your house from govoteky.com, or you can call your county clerk. You get your absentee ballot in the mail, and you can fill it out safely at home and then bring it back to your county clerk. And you can have the personal satisfaction of dropping your vote in the bin and knowing it's been received and will be counted. That's the third way to vote. Fourth way to vote is the way that's gotten most of the attention recently, which is to vote by mail. It's the same process. You go to govoteky.com to request your ballot. You prove your identity. We mail that to you. And then instead of driving down to your county clerk, you can simply put it in the envelope that we'll give you that is postage prepaid. We're paying for your postage. And just mail that ballot back to your clerk. It'll be treated just like any other ballot. It's kept secret. It's secured. And actually, let me add this point. As I said, in our state constitution, we have in-person voting. It's a sacred right. But we actually have absentee voting also in our state constitution. It's also a sacred right. And it's also a right that the governor and I protected. We haven't in any way diminished the rights of our people. We've actually made voting easier by offering govoteky.com to easily request your absentee ballot. And then you can vote the most safe and convenient possible way, which is absentee. We are encouraging people to vote absentee if they can possibly do so. The reason being, we just don't have enough poll workers and enough polling locations to have a traditional election. If the crowds are too big in person, we're going to have a difficult time. Let me give you some sense of scope on that. I had a meeting with the State Board of Elections yesterday. It was attended by Bobby Holzclaw, the clerk of Jefferson County, which is where I currently live. In Jefferson County, they've got 615,000 registered voters. They usually need about 2,500 poll workers. The deadline to appoint poll workers was in March. The governor and I extended the deadline to April. Then we extended it again into May. Guess how many poll workers have volunteered in Jefferson County? 40. 40 for a city so big they have their own congressman. 40 volunteers. We've had that sort of problem all across the state. We don't have the poll workers to have a regular election. Most of our poll workers are elderly. Those are the last people that we want to put in jeopardy unnecessarily, and they're not volunteering in big numbers to do so. We also don't have the locations available. A lot of our polling locations, we have some 3,700 in a traditional election. A lot of them are nursing homes. Obviously, we can't use nursing homes in this election. Some 60% of the fatalities from coronavirus in Kentucky have been in nursing homes. We also had a lot of our locations cancel on us, schools, churches that are closed. If they're closed to their own students or their own parishioners, they're certainly not going to open up to the general public to show up for 12 hours. People they don't know and can't control. So our locations have canceled on us. And some of our locations that were still willing to be locations just won't work because they're not amenable to social distancing. So the best question I've got, I think, in doing these various interviews and Zooms across the state the last several weeks is, why in the heck are y'all reducing the number of locations if the goal is to reduce crowds? And the answer is this: we didn't decide to reduce the locations. The locations decided to reduce the locations. This is something that we're actually working around not part of our plan. It's just a reality we've had to accept. And as this method of meeting today demonstrates, we've all had to make accommodations to the current reality for us to be able to function in a normal way. Just as we've had to acclimate to circumstances with this Zoom, same thing in our elections. That's why we've made absentee voting easier than ever before. So that's my quick intro. I'd love to take any questions you all have. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Secretary Adams. It's very informative. And I just want to say on behalf of people that I work with and know, thank you for the way you're engaging this discussion and being nonpartisan in nature. That makes me even more proud to be a Kentuckian right now than I already am. And we just want to thank you for that. It's great leadership, and we it's noted. It's very noted. We have had a couple of questions, and one question was an interesting question. Do you anticipate that the results of the election will be known at a later time because of this process?
Well, here's what I can tell you. We're working through that now to see what it will look like. Uh, we have two options. One is to just release the numbers that we have. The numbers that we're going to have election night are going to be a couple of things. They're going to be the results of all the in-person voting that people did before election day and on election day. And number two, the absentee ballots that we've received back from hand delivery or from the mail. That sounds like it's most of the votes, but we are delaying a final certification until a week after the election on the assumption that we're going to have ballots coming in late. We're going to have a big rush at the end, and it's just not going to be feasible to count them all very, very quickly election night. What I want to avoid is a situation where someone's up in the numbers election night, and then we get more ballots in the days after the election, ballots that were mailed on election day or before, and then the election changes. Who won, who lost changes. What that's going to do is make people think something was wrong with those ballots. Nothing was wrong with them. They were handled in normal fashion. So what we're internally discussing now is, do we want to release numbers election night, or do we want to hold them until we actually have a complete count and can certify the results? My goal is transparency. I want to give the public as much information as I can as soon as I can possibly do that. But the flip side is, I don't want to have a situation where people lose confidence in our system because election results seem to change depending on the day of the week. So that's something that we're discussing internally. I hope to put out a final position on that later this week if I can.
You monitor that on an individual county level.
Well, even if I have my own policy about what I'm going to release from my office, I don't have the ability to instruct the clerks on what they choose to do. If a clerk decides they want to go ahead and announce what results they have every right to do that. I don't have any authority to restrict that. So even if I decide, I think it's best to wait. Numbers may seep out depending on what the individual clerks decide. They're the frontline election workers. They're constitutional officers. They get to make decisions. I don't make all the decisions here. And so it may be a county by county decision, but we're working through that issue.
Hold on, I just had another question. Another question came in. Let's see. It was another question about, or more of a comment on the bipartisan effort, and just thanking you for that. And wondering that the person actually asked, will it, do you see this as something that's going to like kind of be a precedent for the future, and as our state parties working together and moving things forward?
Well, I hope so. I took a lot of heat within my own party. I'm a Republican. I took a lot of heat for working with the governor, who's a Democrat, and reaching an agreement. But I did it to save the Republican primary, as well as the Democratic primary. I think it was in our mutual interests, people of different parties, to work together to solve problems. That's my job under our Constitution, is to work with other people and solve problems, and that's what I've done. I do want to add this, though. The governor and I have not discussed what we're going to do for November, if anything. I don't think we're in a position in June to say what November is going to look like. This virus has been pretty unpredictable. Things may get worse. Things may get better. It's hard to know. If you had asked me in December or January, 5 months before the primary, what my plan was, I'd say, we'll just have a normal election. Things change, and they change very fast. My goal is to have a traditional election the way we normally do with all of our precinct locations open. But I don't know yet what it's going to look like. It's too soon to forecast that. What I will tell you is I'll work in a respectful, good faith way with the governor. I work with the attorney general. I work with the auditor. I work with all of our officers of both parties in good faith, and I'll keep doing that.
Thank you so much, Secretary Adams. And we do want everyone to know that the Davis County Clerk is Leslie McCarty. They are located on the first floor of the Davis County Courthouse, and that's the courthouse, not the Judicial Center. So that's on the corner of St. Anne and 2nd Street. She's on the first floor off of Frederica, and their phone number is 270-685-8434, and they can be found at davisky.org under Davis County Elections. So we want to encourage all of you all to get your ducks in a row so we can make sure that we have great voter turnout and do our duty. And thank you so much, Secretary Adams, for being here with us today, and thank you for your continued service to our Commonwealth.
Thank you. Can I throw out a quick plug? The deadline to request your absentee ballot is Monday, June 15th. If you don't request it by the 15th, you can still vote. We're not taking your right to vote away from you. You can vote in person. But again, we're encouraging people to vote absentee if they can to reduce the lines. I don't want people outside in late June in Kentucky summer heat for 5 or 6 hours. I want to avoid what happened in Wisconsin, so we're encouraging people to vote absentee. But we do need people to request those ballots as they can before the 15th or on the 15th, because if they don't, we're not going to have time to get them out to people for them to have time to fill them out and then return them back to us in time for the votes to count. And we don't want anyone to be disenfranchised. So we are encouraging people to go to govoteky.com or call your clerk and get your absentee ballot arranged and back to us as soon as you can. Also, the sooner that we get them back, those ballots back at the county clerks, the sooner we'll be able to tabulate the results, and the sooner we'll be able to announce the results after the election is over and give finality to the candidates and to the voters.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for reminding us of that. And we will make sure that our members remember that June 15th is the deadline. So we will get that out too. Thank you so much, Secretary Adams.
My pleasure. Anytime. Thanks so much.
Have a great day.
You too. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And thanks everybody for joining us. This will be on our website and on all of our social media accounts too, if you'd like to let others know to watch it. Thank you.